If someone is telling you that Manusmriti hates on women and people of certain caste, you need to start asking which version they are referring to, because there's context behind this text, and here's the deal. You're watching episode 3 of our series Manusmriti Decoded, and today you're finally going to understand how this became such a controversial scripture. So after Maharishi Bhrigu and Sumati Bhargava's contribution to the original scripture, one of the first, most authoritative, earliest commentaries that we have on this subject is by a legendary Kashmiri scholar called Medhatiti, who gave us the Manubhashya in the 9th to 10th century CE, and it remains the scholarly reference you should refer to even today. Then in the 14th century CE, we had Narayana, who gave us his interpretation on the scripture, and in the 15th century CE, we had Sri Kulluka Bhatt, who authored one of the most widely circulated commentaries on the text. All these folks had built their work on the foundations of earlier scholars like Bharuchi, Govindaraja, Raghavananda, and Ramachandra. But skip to 1920, however, we got our first most authoritative modern translation of the Manusmriti, along with Medhatiti's original commentary, thanks to Mahamahopadhyay Ganganath Jha, and this is the scholarly reference available today. And finally, in 1972, we got a more holistic version by Jayanta Krishna Harikrishna Dave, who included all the 9 commentaries of the traditional scholars we spoke about earlier. But the best and most critical scholarly version we have in modern times today was actually published last year in 2025 by Nitin Sridhar, who authored the Chaturshloki Manusmriti, in which he analyzes the first 4 verses of the text and then dispels many myths about it along the way. It's quite a heavy but an important read if you really want to do your homework. The reason you should know this timeline is because you'll see that the problems start appearing when Western authors start getting their hands on the Manusmriti. Claims by Wendy Doniger, for example, in which she says that this is a patchwork of many verses from different eras, have already been debunked by our scholars. To add fuel to the fire literally, when thinkers like Babasaheb Ambedkar propped up during our independence struggle to criticize the Manusmriti, he also relied to, amongst many other versions, on translations by George Müller and Max Müller, German-British philologists whose work has been heavily criticized for having missionary agendas and personal biases. 2 things to keep in mind before we get into the versions. The first criticism against Manusmriti is that it was used by rulers and kings to oppress poor people. But in the history of India, we rarely see that Manusmriti is used as a legal codified law book. Instead, it was considered as an ideal textbook and not used by any ruler or king, who instead relied on local and regional laws. This does not deny that the Manusmriti may have been misquoted by individual Hindus in the past to abuse their power, and it does not deny that there has been suffering and persecution within our own community. But the stories we hear are extremely lopsided and fabricated. Secondly, you have to realize the agenda of the majority of people who use Manusmriti as a tool to criticize Sanatan Dharma as a whole. They want Hinduism gone from the fabric of India. So making us feel doubtful and ashamed of our own scriptures leaves us vulnerable to abandon our own faith and get converted. And in the next part, we'll actually start looking at the particular controversial verses and start explaining them one by one.